And we're going to rev things up this hour as we get into an education conversation, which is what is grabbing the headlines around the country this morning as schools open for the first term 2025, where many things are happening all at the same time. And the question is, will this particular clown be able to juggle all the balls at the same time? That's the question that we're asking this morning. And so we want to thank you for being here with us every morning as we do this. And as we get into the conversation, our guest is already seated. Another non-stranger to the Situation Room, especially when it comes to matters education. Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa is the Executive Director of the Usawa Agenda, and he's here with us this morning. Happy New Year, Dr.
Happy New Year, Ndu. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing? You. Good to see you too. You know, it's good to have you here as the year has started. I know everybody is very anxious, especially in the areas that we speak of with education. So thank you for being here this morning as we try to unravel some of these things today. CT has gone to yet another African country. CT, how about you welcome Dr. Manyasa with today's proverb?
This is a man who has a good knowledge of history. I was about to mention that I realized that if I tell him what I'm about to tell him, I will have told him. But this country is the 7th most populous country in Africa. And if that is difficult, then it's the 28th most populous country in the world. Okay. It has a mountain that is the second highest peak on the continent of Africa.
The second highest peak on the continent.
Yes.
That is definitely Kenya.
Yes. People who paid attention during geography classes. See?
We are many.
You are definitely many. The proverb. Kufanikiwa maishani unahitaji vitu viwili. Ujinga na ujasiri.
Okay. That's new.
I know, right?
Hiyo ni mpya sana.
Ulikuwa unangoja haba na haba ujaza kibaba, sio? Hapana, twende huko.
Okay. Furahi kujua kwamba ujinga ni muhimu.
Ujinga ni muhimu sana. Ina manufaa. Now tell us what you think the proverb means, Emmanuel.
Unahitaji ujinga na ujasiri. I think that sometimes you need the level of courage that makes people think you're foolish, not that you really need to be foolish.
Oh my goodness.
Very well put. Very well put.
That's why this man is in education.
And that is why this man is in education.
Clearly. Because, I mean, that made sense off the jump, you know.
That's why I've said and kept quiet.
Yeah.
I'm not adding to that.
Voila, I don't think anybody needs to.
Thank you.
Great, that's great, Dr. Manyasa. There's a whole shopping list of needs for the education system in the country. I don't think that's a secret or a mystery to anybody. Schools open for the first term 2025 today. Some will go back tomorrow, some will go back on Wednesday. But a lot of them will go back today. In the last couple of days, a lot of things have happened. KICD, which is Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, released the set books over the weekend and have told us that 85% of schools have received said books and that they were just waiting for the rest. The situation on the ground for many is that shops still don't have those books and parents who come to purchase them do not have them. 1. 2, at the end of the school year, actually well into the holidays, the same ministry, under the auspices of PS Belio Kipsang, shut down 349 schools that had boarding facilities because they had not met the requirement and said, fix it, come back to us, and maybe we'll let you open. 2 days ago, he said, sorry, they're going to remain closed. So parents who have children in these boarding facilities, the option for you is to find another school. Park that. 50% of capitation was released, and the CS made that announcement yesterday and said, fantastic, this is 50% of capitation for 2025. We're on a fantastic trajectory. Whether or not 2024 was completed, that's a whole other kettle of fish. We'll deal with that later. Infrastructure in schools, 16,000 schools were supposed to have, either received an upgrade or had additional classrooms built. At December 31st, we are not sure what numbers were. We had not crossed the 10,000 mark yet. I said there was a shopping list, and it goes on and on. Grade 9s, the first grade 9 show up for school this year, and there are many questions as to what is going to happen. So here we are, and we're saying, why will this school year be different? And that's what we're talking about today. From your perspective, give us an overview of what we are dealing with.
Okay.
It's a lot.
We are dealing with a lot. We are dealing with a lot because we have not prepared ourselves to be here. Somehow we got here. And because we got here, everyone is in a crisis now. First, let me start with the issue of the 349 schools. I think that I agree with the ministry's decision. And they did not close the schools. They closed the boarding wing.
Yes.
And people have said they should have been given time to comply. But I think that the ministry has a duty to guarantee the safety of children in school. And the guidelines for school safety, especially around boarding facilities, have been with the schools for the longest time. So non-compliance has always just been an act of defiance. And it was important that the ministry puts its foot down and says you will comply or not run a boarding facility. So for me, I think it will inconvenience some of the parents, but it is important that the safety of children be given the priority it deserves. So I have no problem with that. The issue of grade 9 transition is where I have a lot of issues.
Yes.
And I think that if I was making decisions, government would delay opening of grade 9.
Why?
Because we are not ready.
Okay.
Contrary to the many statements that have come out, we are not ready.
Can I stop you there? And let me give you the reasons why, then you can tell me why not.
Okay.
According to government, and this is coming directly from the Ministry of Education, CS says we've hired 80,000 teachers. Check. We have KICD has developed books. Check. 9-point-something million books have been printed. Check. Classrooms, okay, well, we kind of fumbled through that, but they've been built. Check. The students are there. Check. What else do you need?
So let me tell you something. First of all, we have married ourselves to this presidential working party recommendation of creating a comprehensive school in ways that I do not understand. I do not understand because it is taking us further and further away from the CBC framework, which means then that we will be implementing something different than the curriculum that we designed. And then that creates a problem, because eventually when you're going to do an evaluation of this curriculum, what are we going to be evaluating? We are going to evaluate it based on the framework. The framework does not have the word domicile. It's a 47-page document. There is no single mention of the word domicile. So what we have envisaged is to say we made mistakes initially in starting to implement the CBC before we were ready. We did not have a costed implementation plan. We did not know how much we'll need at what point so that we can plan the resourcing of the implementation process. But that being the mistake that we made originally, the next thing that we were supposed to do was to say, how do we find our way back to closest to what is envisaged in the framework? From where I sit, we need to be then trying to go back to the pre-844 arrangement. Pre-844 arrangement where we had secondary schools that had O-level only based on their capacity. We had secondary school that had O-level and one stream of A-level. And we had those that had O-level and two streams of A-level. In this context, then, we expect that we'll have secondary schools that have junior school only based on their capacity. We'll have those that will have junior school and one stream of senior, say the humanities, if they don't have enough science teachers and they do not have the laboratories that they need.
Yeah.
And then we'll have those that will have junior school, have senior school, two streams, that is STEM and humanities.
Yes.
And then we have a whole set of TVET institutions in this country, which for me should be used as the technical stream of senior school. They have trained tutors, they have workshops, they have equipment. If we do not go that way, what we are working on right now is administering Panadol to a cancer patient.
Boy.
Because, yes, we can say we have built classrooms, and I can tell you for sure that we have not crossed 10,000. I am very sure about that because we went around the country in the second week of December and collected data from 21 counties out of the 47. And 63% of schools did not have a complete class and did not have a classroom under construction.
So there's no way that between
there's
December
no miracle
15th
that has
and January
happened
6th
to make it possible that we have built the classrooms.
Okay.
I can bet everything on that. So, and the classrooms are not the most important to me. The most important thing for me in learning are teachers. We have 35% of schools that currently host junior lacking a science teacher.
I'm sorry?
35% of the school that currently host junior school do not have a science teacher.
Even one.
Yeah. Because 79% of all the teachers posted to junior school are humanities. So nationally, 21% of the teachers are STEM. If that is the position, and we keep insisting on keeping these children in the schools where they are, it means 35% of the children in public junior schools are already predestined for humanities because they cannot even dream of STEM. They don't have a STEM teacher.
Okay.
Okay,
I need to breathe. I just so that I can understand this a little bit. We are saying that at some point you will choose a pathway according to this new system, and this is from the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, that you will choose a pathway, and in this case it's the STEM or it's the humanities. But we are also saying that with the way the current system is set up and where teachers are going, that you really don't have a choice. If I happen to go to a school, for example, and I wanted to do STEM, but there's no science teacher, I am predestined, like you say. It's already been set in stone that I will have to go the way of humanities.
Unless you can teach yourself.
Unless you can teach yourself, or, you know. Is that what we are saying? Why would we do that? Is it pre-designed? Is it a failure? Are there not enough teachers? Do we not have enough science teachers in the country? How would you say that we want to form a pathway if you don't have the one to deliver the knowledge in that particular area?
We do not. I know that we don't have as many science teachers as we have in humanities.
Yes.
But we do not have the level of scarcity that will make us have schools without science teachers. What has happened is that we have messed up the recruitment of teachers, allowed politicians to have a role. You have seen politicians dish out letters in funerals. When they are doing that, they are hiring the children of their supporters, or they are hiring their own supporters. They're not hiring what the schools need. They're hiring the people they want to hire. And so schools have found themselves with, you have 3 teachers, all of them humanities.
Okay, so who's teaching science? Because this is, I'm sorry, I have to stick on this point because I think it gives insight into the greater issues that we speak of. One of these subjects, if we're going to look at senior primary, that's what it's called, yes, and then going into junior secondary, now going into the comprehensive schools, science is one of the subjects. Yeah. It is one of the subjects. How do you offer the subject if you don't have the teacher? Who's teaching science? In 63% of these schools, who's teaching science?
This takes us back to the planning that he spoke of, but also takes me to the question of what exactly was the mandate of this working party? Because we had the CBC, we had a curriculum, we had prepared it. Yeah. Once you have a curriculum, you know what it is you're supposed to do. You all the dots have been thingamajigged and all the I's have been also thingamajigged. So, what was the working party supposed to do?
They were supposed to come up with a pathway for proper implementation. And I think that they may have overreached themselves.
Just a little bit.
And made suggestions, some of which should have been interim, to address the mess that was there in January 2023. Because we are not prepared to be in January 2023. And I understood the domiciling in primary school as an interim measure.
Not in permanent.
Not permanent. Because of interests, people have fought very hard to make this permanent. Interests that have nothing to do with the learner, but to do with power and money. Yeah. Primary school heads want this in primary because they will get more money.
Because they'll get more students?
Some unions want them in primary because their members will be many and they'll get more money. We are underutilizing the teachers we have posted in junior school by a huge margin. If we moved these teachers to secondary schools because they are secondary school teachers, they will teach junior learners and they will teach other learners. We will be able to use them appropriately. Rather than have 2 language teachers in a primary school, now called junior, where they are struggling on who tries to help and teach math, who used to know math when they were in school so they can try to teach math. We could have them in a secondary school where they just teach what they are trained in and someone else teaches.
So wait, this thing is true because we have seen reports. I mean, we look at these things every day where a teacher has been, what's the word they use? Posted in a particular institution. And this could be a teacher of English or it could be a teacher of history. And they're told, okay, well, welcome. Now that you're here, you will also teach math.
Yes.
Yes.
This is true. This happens.
Yes.
We have choir masters from villages helping to teach music. Choir master who just has some voice and can solo a choir.
And likes music.
They have never been trained anywhere to teach. Because you have this as one of the learning areas and there's no teacher who is trained. And this, something like music is not something that just any teacher can teach.
Sure.
Exactly, very specialized.
It's very specialized.
Do we have, for instance, enough music teachers whom we could post?
No.
They don't teach music anymore in our institutions where teachers are trained.
This country is interesting when they start to plan. Because I recall when we joined university as students, music had just been introduced in secondary schools. And there was such a huge demand for music teachers. And a lot of the people who joined with me changed courses to do music. By the time we were graduating, music was no longer an examinable subject. And most of them were therefore not posted. So no one
opted to
study music education anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
And yet we come with the CBC and there's music.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at these grade 9 students whom we've already established there's an issue. Whether it is infrastructure, whether it is teachers, whether it is course text, there are just a myriad of issues here. This is the same group of students who went into grade 6 and there was the issue. They're the same ones who entered into grade 7, which was now domiciled in high school, was not primary school, whatever that was, that whole mess. What's likely to happen? If things continue on this particular trajectory, what's likely to happen again with the same set of students who suffered the thing that they did when they were entering into grade 7?
I am so concerned about them and about the country, actually, because education is the future of our country. So if we continue on the path that we are on, what it means is that by the end of this year, a lot of these learners are going to have lost plenty of their time in school. They're not going to have learned much. But then, that is not all. Come January next year, we have transitioned to senior school. And a lot of the schools that we are going to be making senior are not worthy the name. Yeah. And so I shudder to imagine what will happen if some of the schools I have seen applying and saying we will offer 2 streams of senior will actually be made senior and asked to offer those 2 streams. I know of schools without a single lab, without a science teacher posted by TSC, which have applied to be senior school offering STEM and humanities.
And we are talking about biology, we're talking about chemistry, we're talking about...
And they have no lab, and they do not have a science teacher posted by the TSC. They have science teachers that they have had on board of management terms.
It's a catastrophe. I mean, it's beyond a joke. It is a catastrophe. What are we talking about? Then who are we going to deliver? And then, unfortunately, still exam-based, whereby you expect these children to prove their mettle through an exam.
Yeah.
How? For me, it is a catastrophe. It has already begun. It's not even in the making. It has already begun. And why can't we see this? I mean, we're looking straight at the thing, but why can't we see it?
I don't know, because I honestly don't know why we allow certain interests to be so important and even work against the interest of the country. Because I have asked myself, why are we so married to the idea that these children must stay, first of all, in the primary schools where they are? In the survey that we did, more than 60% of the current primary schools that are hosting junior school have a secondary school within walking distance. So these children can be moved now to these secondary schools and allowed to use the current Form 1 class that is empty. And the current, the previous Form 1 who are now Form 2 are almost 200,000 more than the grade 8, than the grade 9. So the space they have left behind is more than enough for grade 9.
To fit in the grade 9s.
Yeah. And this will allow this grade 9 to start to benefit from availability of laboratories in these secondary schools, from availability of a variety of teachers that they don't have right now where they are. Those in the 35% of the schools without a STEM teacher will have an opportunity to have a STEM teacher for the remainder of the year, that they still have to be in junior school. And that will give them an opportunity to start to prepare for senior, to have an idea of what pathway they will take.
Sure.
I have had the story of, they will need to have the consistency of their teachers. That's fine. But these teachers are close by there. They can continue to teach them as well.
Indeed.
In those secondary schools.
Why?
I do not know who told Kenyans that secondary schools have to be boarding. So the argument you hear is, all these children in junior are too young to go to secondary because they are too young to board. 65% of our secondary schools are day.
Are day schools.
So who said if they go there, they have to board?
They can be day schools anyway.
They will be day scholars. Because that is what junior school was envisaged to be. So that the teacher, the parent, and the child are in constant communication to enable the parent and the teacher to guide the child through the choice of their senior school pathway.
You just need to breathe to be able to understand that one of the foundational pillars towards society we've already established is education. And if we're looking at some fundamental issues here on the foundation, we've already got cracks, big cracks that could lead to these pillars falling down. So let's look at then what is and where this problem has to be dealt with. It looks like it's going to be a different year this year, but can anything be done now to salvage a situation later? Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa is our guest this hour, and we're looking at why this will be a different year for education. Schools open today, tomorrow, getting into this week, Wednesday, and already questions are being asked. What's going to happen? Should we revert towards something else? Our conversation on education this morning is happening with the Executive Director of the USAWA Agenda, who is Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa. And so we're asking ourselves, this will be a different year. There seem to be so many things happening at the same time. But, it's almost like, there's the hill, and at the bottom of the hill is where we're trying to go. It doesn't matter what you collect along the way. We're just going to keep going if the end goal is the bottom of the hill. Whatever fashion you choose to get, you get there in, okay. It just seems like that's the way it's going. Is it possible as we go down this hill then to say, okay, how about we go down the hill in an orderly fashion? Is it possible to do that at this point?
It is possible. What I think we need is just to disentangle ourselves to some of the things that we have tied ourselves too tightly on. And one of the things we need to disentangle ourselves from are some of the recommendations of the Working Party and say, yeah, they were made. We have looked at their practicability and they are not implementable the way they were recommended. And let us therefore refocus and look at the reality of what we have. We started to reform the curriculum because we thought we would improve equity in the new curriculum that we come up with. We thought that we will make it possible for the country to develop the skill sets that were needed much more than what we were being able to develop with the previous curriculum. We thought that we'll be able to make education and especially examinations less cutthroat, remove the incentives that were leading to exam cheating and all the other malpractices around exam by enabling every learner to be able to pursue what they are talented in and what they are interested in. For that to happen, we have to address the imbalance that we now see, because what this imbalance is going to do is to make the exams even much more competitive, is going to make the equity angle that we're trying to address worse. And so for me, we can do a number of things. One of those things that we can do right now is to say we will do away with the comprehensive school thing. And start working towards this year towards having a school system that is similar to the pre-844. So first of all, move the grade 9s to the empty classrooms in secondary school.
For which the Form 1s would have gone to?
Yes.
Okay.
And then start working towards doing two things. Instead of investing now in hiring new teachers urgently, let us invest in expanding the capacity of the current sub-county secondary schools this year in preparation for senior next year. But also in preparation for transferring eventually all the junior school learners to secondary school. In most parts of the country, there are enough day schools, day secondary schools for these junior learners to commute to. It's only in a few parts of the country where secondary schools are so far. But in those particular areas, mostly ourselves, even grade 1 learners are boarding because schools are very far away. So in those areas, it can be an exception because even grade 1s are already boarding for the purpose that parents are pastoralists moving from place to place, and so for the learners to be in school, they have to stay there while parents move around.
Is that the acceptable position? Should it be the acceptable position that because schools are so far away, because remember, we are talking about children who are still in their formative years.
We have certain realities in parts of the country where it is not possible for children to commute. I'll tell you, if you go to North Hor, schools, our closest school is 50 kilometers from where many people live. So there's no way you're going to commute. You have to stay there. And I'm telling you for sure that I know grade 1s who are boarding because the school is 50 kilometers away from home. And even when the schools close, teachers keep children in school until parents come for them. For the reason that you can't ask children to go home because chances are parents have moved from where they were when the children are coming to school. So you have to wait for the parents to come for them. That is a reality that is in some parts of the country, but small parts of the country. In majority parts of the country, we have schools to which children can commute as secondary schools. And even those that are currently purely boarding, who said they must always be boarding? Who said Alliance must always be boarding? We can allow junior learners around there to commute to that school and occupy the 9 empty classrooms they have right now.
9?
Yeah.
They have 9 streams?
Because they had 9 streams of Form 1.
Form 1 in 2024 they had 11.
Yeah, actually they had 11.
Yeah.
So
11?
So they actually have 11 empty classrooms.
So those are 11 empty classrooms?
Yes. And we are still struggling to build others in primary schools near there so they can accommodate grade 9.
Something a little off here, isn't it?
Quite.
We can get these children there, and they have teachers. They have teachers who now have some slots in their timetable because they were supposed to be teaching these 11 Form 1 streams.
And they are not there.
And they are not there.
So then I have to ask, what would the planning mechanism have looked like if we can see very clearly, because this is the question we started to ask when they started going around the country and they were saying, okay, we're going to move things around. This question that we started to ask, what is going to happen to that infrastructure that now lies, if you can use that word, fallow, use an agricultural term, essentially that's what's happening because it's not going to be productive, right? And then you want to say we're not going to have the Form 1 anymore, but you have the infrastructure. But then you want to sink billions of shillings into building 16,000 classrooms around the country. Why?
And 16,000 will not be enough.
And yet, if you're looking...
Every single high school in the country...
will have a free class.
It has free classes. Not will have. Today. Have free classes. Because Form 1 will have... At the end of December 2024... we were not going to take Form 1 in 2025. Yeah. So every single high school in the country has empty classrooms because Form 1s were not coming this year. Yeah. So why sink millions into building 16,000 classrooms?
Because you know as well that we could even do away with 1 year of junior.
So junior is 6, 7, and 8 now. Yes.
No, it's 7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, and 9 now. Yes.
We could even change junior to end at 8.
How?
By just saying it will end at 8, because the curriculum is continuous.
Right.
So junior could just end at 8. We had that conversation during the design of this curriculum and asked whether, since junior is just an exploratory period, whether it should be a whole 3 years. And it is Magoha who made it 3 years. It should have been 2 years. So that they occupy the primary school for the empty class 7 and 8.
So you could essentially...
And then grade 9 goes to secondary.
So
we could still do that.
6, 2, 3.
Yes, 6 to 4.
Yeah, 4.
So essentially, we are saying that just within the existing structure of our school system, the solution that
we can still accommodate.
we had the solution all along.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. There's nowhere where we are required by any cast in stone rule to make junior school 3 years.
Do you think that because this is what this is all about, so the curriculum change is what has brought this, and we can see the gaps clear as day. Do you think then that, we've established, you've said the same, that the curriculum as it is, there's nothing really wrong with it. The implementation of it seems to be where the bottleneck is.
And I think it is just hijacked by interest.
Okay, how so?
Because, first of all, we didn't have to change the system. We agreed that the curriculum needed to be reformed. The change in the system is something we brought on ourselves. We didn't have to. So even today, we can decide that we'll implement CBC in the 844 system. We didn't have to change the system.
We just need to tweak the curriculum.
No, the curriculum remains as it is. What needs to change is the system. We can say we'll implement 8 years of primary and 4 years of secondary.
Why?
And still implement this curriculum.
Because essentially what we're looking at is a curriculum that was going to have a wholesome approach, whereby there were other things that you did, whereby comprehension and then being able to express your learning was introduced.
We were moving away from the outcome-based education to competency-based education, and that did not necessarily require that we change the system from 844 to 2333. They did not require that.
Emmanuel, something seems to happen in this country when it comes to implementing it. If my memory serves me right, the 844, as it was envisioned, and as some of us who are in some of the so-called the working parties were the teachers, that was the direction the 844 was heading towards. Introduce an element of some practicum into the learning process, and the idea of the continuous assessment being something that should have been thought of, but somewhere in the implementation, that went and the exam remained, and it was just something that was discussed, and whatever it was that had been envisioned did not take place. Now we have a CBC, and the very thing that was envisioned, we are seeing it as clear as day, that, as Emmanuel puts it, it's been hijacked, and suddenly what is being implemented is not what was envisioned at all. But to what end?
To what end? Because I think that's a worrisome thing here. That again, we're stumbling in the dark. Maybe you'll land on something, break a few things at the end of the day, but then you'll come out, maybe your shirt undone, buttoned up halfway. But then what are we delivering at the end of the day? Bora walienda shule is essentially what we are saying.
Actually, from everything,
very worrisome.
From everything, that isn't even you see the role that students and parents play in this is that they're people who need to go to school, want to go to school, and they provide an ecosystem within which some people can carry on the activities they planned in the first place. Because when you have something that has been planned and it is clear that this is what we needed to do, and more importantly, we have people who can actually implement it. Why is it that there's, for instance, the discussion around the teachers who were supposed to ensure, the ministry was supposed to ensure that there were sufficient teachers to help carry out this particular. But even before the CBC, we already had a problem with sufficiency of teachers in certain places, isn't it? Okay, now you bring in the CBC and it's clear we need more. And suddenly, the number 30,000 is thrown at you. And you're saying, we get the 30,000, but does it meet the need that we have? And where are these 30,000 going to be? And how are they going to be? What is this process? And then you're told we have more trained teachers than we can employ. So the supply side isn't a problem. And yet, the entire process seems to be muddled. There's always something which is supposed to be working, which isn't working. Something which is supposed to be right, which isn't right. And at the end of it, we see the very people who are supposed to benefit from this system achieving the complete opposite of what they were supposed to achieve.
So who's listening? Who's going to bell the cat here? Who should listen and actually do something about it now?
I think that where we are at, it is the president. Yeah.
He's a little bit occupied at the moment.
It is the president who needs to act, because there are lots of interests that are at play that require such a serious level of authority to rein them in and say that we will sit down. There is this story of this has already happened, so we cannot, we can always, and I can use the example of a plane. A plane can always leave the runway. But if you discover that there is one faulty engine, once you have left the runway, you find the shortest path back to the runway. Or to the nearest runway. If it's not where you started, but the nearest runway. So you can be able to fix that engine. To avoid flying into oblivion. So I think that we have at some point to fix this and make our school system work. And the solution is not too complicated. The solution just requires us to say, yes, these are the positions we took. We were not right. And we can change. Sometimes we fight for things because they are our brainchild. Even when the reality has now confirmed that, we may not have been right.
Do you think that those who sit at the helm of the operations of education in the country realize these issues?
I know they are brilliant people, so they must realize. I think they're just struggling to balance the interests.
They're caught up in the moment.
Which they shouldn't even be struggling with. They should accept that they will offend some people for the sake of doing the right thing. Yeah.
What does it look like from here going out? I mean, like I said, we can talk about it. It's just kind of like, when you're underwater and you hear some voices somewhere. It seems to me that that's what's happening at the ministry. They're underwater, you can hear some voices here, but you're just trying to get, through the water to get where you need to go. But there are millions of children who are at the end of that decision, or in this case, non-decision. And for me, that's where the problem is.
It is not just the children, it is the country.
Yes, it is the country.
Every generation produces its own doctors, produces its own engineers. Whether we teach them or not, this generation will produce doctors. They are the ones who treat us in old age. That is how important this is to all of us. Yeah.
So essentially, we have consigned an entire generation of Kenyans to some half-baked education when they deserved more. And the outcomes, if you look at what the foundation has set in place, is going to be very dire for the country. I have this theory. I like the theory. And the theory is many people who, even in my time when we were in the university, who ended up being teachers did not want to teach. I was among those few people who actually wanted to teach. And I chose education as the first choice. Most people, you were offered education when you couldn't get what you wanted. You wanted to become what? Take education. You wanted to take. And of course, if you couldn't take education, there were other courses you could take. Or you could, join the army, join the police force, be a prison warden. But think about it and compare it with an earlier age where people were teaching wanted to teach. And the sort of students they produced. I'm such a product. People wanted to teach. They wanted to teach, and they wanted to teach because of the way they taught you. Then you have people who are reluctant to teach. My theory is that you gave that a 10-year span, and what you had were people who were burning libraries. And burning schools. Now give it another 10 years spin and see what happens.
What's going to happen? So we can draw parallels between what you put now and what is going to come out in the future,
Yes.
Emmanuel?
Yeah. Because, the only thing that happens in life is decomposition. If you put something there, it will decompose. That is
It's
a natural
simple
occurrence.
reality. Yes.
But every good thing is done purposefully. You plan, you invest, you execute for anything positive to happen. Nothing positive happens. Everything positive is done. Yeah. And we are sitting here hoping that somehow something good will happen without doing it.
But in reality, we are condemning an entire generation.
Absolutely, and this is the problem, that we can't. If those tasked with responsibility can't see this, and in as much as they may be able to see it, we can all see it. Doing something about it, then for me, then is where the rubber meets the road. And if we can't do that, we're essentially saying then, damn their future. That's really the problem here.
I'm going to take a very extreme view here and give the example of something called the Rome Statute. Among the things that was asked when there were atrocities committed and somebody said, I took orders. You say, fine, we get that one. But what is it that you did to avert the horror that we see? What? Yes, you were given orders, but what did you do
to avert it? And if you didn't do anything, that you're culpable, then you're culpable.
Yes.
Or you're complicit.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
See, so you are in the education system is just about the most unique ministry we have, because every future that we talk about in this country is nestled in that particular ministry. When you talk of the future, it's there.
So we do have a responsibility to continue raising flags about this, don't we?
Yeah. We have to make noise until someone who can do something hears. Yeah.
And actually does something about it. Why this year will be a different year for education. So many things that are happening and so many balls being juggled at the same time. Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa, who is the Executive Director of the USAWA Agenda, has been our guest this hour. Thank you for being here with us this morning. The hope is that even as we continue to talk and to raise these issues, that they will continue to be spoken about, or that something will actually be done. It's way too important for us to be too silent about it.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.